The cantina on Zra Station was buzzing with energy, a hub for interstellar travellers to exchange tales of danger and adventure. Jason Strickland, a rugged human explorer with an insatiable curiosity, leaned against the bar, nursing a glass of fiery Zran ale. Around him, murmurs of a single name rippled through the air. Miri. "She's the alien witch of Van," one grizzled trader warned, his leathery face etched with caution. "No one who's crossed paths with her comes back the same." Jason arched an eyebrow. "A witch, huh? Thought magic was for fairy tales." Another patron chimed in, a tall insectoid merchant whose mandibles clicked nervously. "It's no tale, human. She has powers that defy logic, binding minds, bending wills. They say she cast out an entire Solarian battalion with a single word." The trader nodded, leaning closer. "You best stay clear of her, Strickland." "She's trouble you don't want." Jason chuckled, setting his drink down. "Trouble tends to find me anyway. Might as well meet it head on." The room fell silent as the patrons exchanged uneasy glances. Jason had a reputation for taking risks, but this was different. Even the boldest smugglers and mercenaries avoided Van, the witch's domain. But Jason, intrigued by the challenge and the mystery, had already made up his mind. The planet Van was a kaleidoscope of contrasts. Its skies shimmered with hues of violet and gold, while dense forests of bioluminescent trees cast an otherworldly glow over the land. Jason landed his small Explorer-class ship on the outskirts of a sprawling jungle, the air thick with the scent of alien flora. The villagers he encountered were wary, their eyes darting nervously at the mention of Miri. "The witch lives beyond the crystal ridge," an elder finally said, her voice trembling. "She doesn't welcome outsiders. Turn back while you can." Jason smiled, his determination unshaken. "Thanks for the advice." He treaded through the dense jungle, the vibrant colours and alien wildlife both captivating and disorienting. As he approached the ridge, a sudden chill swept through the air, and the vibrant sounds of the jungle faded into an eerie silence. At the summit of the ridge, he saw her. Miri stood in the clearing, her figure illuminated by the soft glow of the crystalline ground. Her appearance was both beautiful and unsettling. Her iridescent skin shimmered like liquid starlight, and her eyes glowed with an intensity that seemed to pierce his very soul. She didn't flinch as Jason stepped closer, her gaze fixed on him. "So," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, yet carrying an edge of danger. "Another fool come to test the stories." Jason stopped a few paces away, his heart pounding but his posture steady. "Not testing anything, just curious." Her lips curved into a faint smile, though her expression remained unreadable. "Curiosity has led many to their doom." Jason met her gaze, his voice calm. "And some to discovery." Miri tilted her head, intrigued despite herself. "You are bold, human, but boldness alone will not protect you from what lies ahead." Before Jason could respond, a wave of energy rippled through the clearing and his surroundings seemed to shift and shimmer. He felt an intense pull, as though her presence was reaching into the depths of his mind. And then, in an instant, it was over. Miri turned and began to walk away, her voice lingering in the air. "If you truly wish to understand, follow. But know this, understanding comes with a price." Jason hesitated, the weight of her words pressing down on him, but his curiosity, that unrelenting drive to uncover the unknown, pushed him forward. He followed her into the forest, unaware that his journey into her world would change the course of his life, and perhaps the galaxy, forever. Jason followed Miri into the dense, glowing forest, his boots crunching against crystalline shards that shimmered beneath the alien moonlight. The deeper they went, the more surreal the landscape became. Trees with translucent leaves pulsed faintly as though they carried veins of light, and the air grew thick with an electric hum. Miri moved with effortless grace, her steps silent, as though the forest itself welcomed her. Jason trailed behind, his senses alert, but his curiosity overpowering his caution. "You live out here alone?" he asked, breaking the silence. She glanced over her shoulder, her luminous eyes locking onto his. "Alone is safer. For them. For me." "Doesn't seem like the friendliest setup," Jason said, brushing aside a low-hanging branch that sparkled with tiny bioluminescent insects. "But then, I guess people don't come knocking, do they?" Miri's lips twitched into the faintest smile. "Only those too foolish to heed the warnings." Jason chuckled softly, his confidence unwavering. "Lucky for me, I'm not big on listening to warnings." "That much is clear," Miri replied, her tone dry but tinged with amusement. She stopped suddenly, her hand rising to signal him to halt. Before Jason could ask why, the ground beneath them shifted. A low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows ahead, and a massive insect-like predator emerged from the underbrush. Its carapace glinted like dark steel, and its mandibles clicked menacingly as it advanced. Jason reached for his weapon, but Miri raised her hand, her voice sharp. "Number, stay still." The creature lunged, but just as it was about to strike, Miri extended her arm, her fingers tracing intricate patterns in the air. A soft glow enveloped the predator, and it froze mid-motion, its body trembling as though caught in an invisible web. Jason watched, stunned, as Miri whispered words in a language he couldn't comprehend. The creature lowered itself to the ground, its aggression fading into a strange calm. Mirai stepped closer, placing a hand on its armoured head. After a moment, it retreated into the forest without a sound. She turned to Jason, her expression unreadable. "Not everything can be fought. Some things must be understood." Jason nodded, his respect for her deepening. "Noted." They arrived at her dwelling, a structure that seemed to merge seamlessly with the forest. Its walls were crafted from living crystal, and its interior glowed with a soft, otherworldly light. Jason took in the strange artifacts and intricate designs that filled the space, each object seemingly alive with latent energy. Mirai gestured for him to sit at a low table, carved from a single slab of shimmering stone. "You seek to know me, human," she said, her tone calm but probing. "But knowledge comes with risk. Are you prepared for that?" Jason met her gaze, his confidence unshaken. "I didn't come all this way to back out now." She studied him for a moment, then retrieved a small glowing orb from a shelf, setting it on the table between them. She began to speak, her voice low and rhythmic. The orb pulsed with light, and Jason felt a strange sensation wash over him. A pull, as if the air itself was drawing him closer to her. "What is this?" he asked, his voice quieter than he intended. "A glimpse," she replied, her eyes never leaving his, "into what lies beneath your understanding." The room seemed to dissolve around them, replaced by a swirling expanse of light and shadow. Jason felt as though he were floating, yet he was acutely aware of her presence anchoring him. Images flashed before his eyes, memories, dreams, and fragments of a life he didn't recognize. Through it all, Mirai's voice guided him, weaving a narrative that felt both alien and deeply personal. When the vision ended, Jason found himself back in the room, his chest heaving as though he had run for miles. He looked at Mirai, his heart pounding. "What did you do to me?" She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "I showed you the threads that bind us all. Some call it magic, others fate." Jason shook his head, trying to process what he had just experienced. "Why me? Why show me any of this?" "Because you didn't run," Mirai said simply. "You didn't come to judge or conquer. You came to understand." Her words struck something deep within him, a feeling he couldn't quite name. He leaned back, his thoughts racing, but his resolve unchanged. So what now? Mirai smiled faintly, the first genuine smile he had seen from her. Now, human, we see if you truly meant it when you said you weren't afraid. Jason couldn't help but smile back, the strange connection between them growing stronger with every passing moment. Though he didn't fully understand what had just happened, one thing was clear. He wasn't leaving Van any time soon. Jason woke to a sensation he couldn't quite place, an electric charge humming just beneath his skin. It wasn't pain, but it wasn't entirely comfortable either. The strange connection he felt to Mirai lingered in his mind, as vivid as a dream he couldn't shake. Mirai sat cross-legged across the room, her figure illuminated by the soft glow of the crystalline walls. She appeared calm, but Jason sensed the tension beneath her serene exterior. "You've done something to me," Jason said, his voice steady but questioning. That, whatever it wasn't just some glimpse. She met his gaze, her luminous eyes softened. "The spell was not meant to harm you, Jason. It was a connection, a bridge to help you see the world as I do." Jason crossed his arms, pacing. "A connection? Feels more like a leash." Mirai's expression hardened, her voice gaining an edge. "You're free to leave, human, but the truth you've glimpsed will follow you wherever you go." Jason stopped, the weight of her words settling over him. The connection he felt wasn't just to her, it was to the world around him. The bioluminescent trees seemed brighter, the hum of the forest sharper. He could feel the pulse of Van itself. "What is this, then?" he asked, gesturing around them. "Magic? Fate? What am I tied to?" Mirai rose, her movements graceful. "You are tied to nothing, Jason." The spell only amplified what was already there, your own curiosity, your drive to seek understanding. You were drawn to this place long before you met me. Jason stared at her, the pieces falling into place. He had come to Van for answers, but now he realized the answers were unraveling more questions. "So, what happens now?" Miri smiled faintly, the tension easing from her features. "Now, you learn what it means to see." Jason's lessons began the next day. Mirai led him deep into the forest, where the air buzzed with energy and the ground pulsed faintly beneath their feet. She explained that Van's magic wasn't like the structured sciences of humanity. It was a living force, woven into the planet itself. "Magic isn't casting spells and waving your hands," Miri said, crouching beside a pool of glowing water. "It's understanding the rhythms of life and aligning yourself with them." Jason watched as she traced patterns on the surface of the water with her fingers. The ripples glowed, forming symbols he couldn't decipher. "This place is alive," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "It always has been," she replied. "You just couldn't feel it before." She handed him a small, luminescent crystal. "Focus on this. Feel its energy, not with your eyes but with your presence." Jason frowned, but complied, holding the crystal in his palm. At first he felt nothing, but as he concentrated, a warmth spread through his hand, travelling up his arm. He gasped, startled by the sensation. "That's it," Miri said softly. "Now channel it." "Channel it how?" Jason asked, his voice strained. "Trust your instincts," she said, stepping back. Jason hesitated but closed his eyes, focusing on the energy coursing through him. The crystal grew warmer and a faint glow surrounded his hand. The light pulsed in time with his heartbeat, and for a brief moment he felt a connection to the planet unlike anything he had experienced. But the moment shattered when the ground trembled beneath them. Miri's expression darkened as she turned toward the source of the disturbance. "They're here." Jason followed her gaze, his grip tightening on the crystal. "Who's they?" "The Council of Van," she said, her voice sharp. "They've come to test your resolve." Before Jason could respond, figures emerged from the shadows, tall, imposing beings cloaked in shimmering robes. Their faces were hidden, but their presence was suffocating. One of them stepped forward, its voice reverberating like a low drum. "You dare bring an outsider into our sacred domain, Mirai?" Mirai stood her ground, her glow intensifying. "He is not like the others." The figure scoffed. "He is human. Their kind seeks to destroy what they do not understand." Jason stepped forward, his jaw tight. "I'm standing right here. If you've got something to say about me, say it to my face." The council members shifted, their cloaks rustling like whispers. The leader turned its gaze to Jason. "Prove yourself, human. Show us you are worthy of the connection Mirai has bestowed upon you." Jason glanced at Miri, who nodded subtly. "They won't accept words," she said. "Only action." Jason took a deep breath, gripping the crystal tightly. "All right," he said, meeting the leader's gaze. "Let's see what you've got." The leader raised a hand, and the forest shifted around them. The trees twisted, the air thickened, and the ground beneath Jason's feet glowed with a challenge yet to be revealed. This was his first test, not just of his newfound abilities, but of his worthiness to stand beside the alien witch of Varn. The air was alive with tension as the Council of Varn unleashed the trial. Jason found himself standing on a platform of glowing roots, suspended over an endless void. Around him, the forest shifted, its crystalline trees twisting into shapes both beautiful and menacing. The council's leader gestured and the platform trembled. "This trial will test your spirit, human." The leader intoned, its voice like rolling thunder. "Prove you are worthy of the bond you share with the witch." Jason steadied himself, his eyes darting to Miri. She stood on a distant ledge, her glowing form a beacon of calm. "Trust the connection," she called out, her voice carrying across the void. "The forest will respond to you if you let it." The first challenge came swiftly. Vines erupted from the platform, snaking toward Jason with deliberate intent. He leaped aside, narrowly avoiding their grasp. "Respond to me, huh?" he muttered, gripping the crystal Miri had given him. Focusing on the energy coursing through it, he willed the vines to stop. They paused, shuddering as if conflicted. Encouraged, Jason reached out, letting his instincts guide him. The vines shifted direction, forming a bridge to the next platform. "Well, that's new," Jason muttered, stepping onto the makeshift path. The trial escalated. Each platform brought new challenges: gusting winds, illusions of his worst fears, and sudden attacks from glowing beasts that seemed pulled from the depths of nightmares. Through it all, Jason relied on the connection Miri had forged within him. He began to feel the rhythm of the forest, its energy pulsing in time with his heartbeat. At the final platform, the leader of the council appeared before him, its imposing form radiating power. "You have come far," it said, "but resolve is not enough to prove your worth. You must sacrifice." Jason frowned. "Sacrifice what?" "Your connection to her," the leader said, gesturing toward Miri. "The bond you share weakens you. Sever it, and we will allow you to leave unscathed." Jason's grip on the crystal tightened. He glanced at Mirai, who watched him with a calm, unwavering gaze. "What if I don't?" The leader's voice grew darker. "Then you will perish." Jason hesitated for only a moment before shaking his head. "Not a chance. You don't understand what we've been through to get here. I won't betray that." The leader raised its hand, and the void around Jason erupted into chaos. The platform crumbled beneath him, but he stood firm, the crystal in his hand glowing brighter than ever. He felt Mirai's presence through the bond, her strength flowing into him. "Then fight," the leader said, "and earn your place." The battle was unlike anything Jason had ever experienced. The forest itself turned against him, vines and roots lashing out, the air thick with choking energy. Jason moved with newfound confidence, his bond with Mirai guiding his actions. Each step he took felt purposeful, each motion deliberate. From the distant ledge, Mirai joined the fight. Her presence amplified Jason's strength, and together they became a force of unity that the forest seemed to recognize. Her voice echoed in his mind. "You're not alone, Jason. Trust me." With her guidance, Jason began to manipulate the energy around him. The crystal in his hand pulsed as he redirected the forest's attacks, turning them into shields and barriers. The council watched in silence, their glowing eyes unreadable as the human and the witch fought as one. The turning point came when the forest conjured a massive beast, a towering creature of crystal and shadow. It roared, charging at Jason with terrifying speed. He braced himself, but before he could act, Mirai appeared beside him, her hand touching his. "Together," she said softly. The bond between them surged, and a wave of light erupted from their combined energy. The beast froze mid-charge, its crystalline form dissolving into harmless shards. The forest grew still, its hostility fading into a calm hum. The leader of the council stepped forward, its towering form bowing slightly. "You have proven your worth, human. The bond you share with her is not weakness, but strength. You are the first outsider to understand this." Jason exhaled heavily, the crystal in his hand dimming as the trial ended. He turned to Mirai, his exhaustion fading as he saw the pride in her eyes. "Didn't think I'd make it there for a minute." Mirai smiled faintly. "You are never truly alone." The council dissolved into the shadows, leaving the forest quiet and peaceful once more. As Jason and Mirai walked back toward her dwelling, the connection between them felt stronger than ever. He glanced at her, a grin tugging at his lips. "So, do I get a badge or something for surviving that?" She laughed softly, the sound melodic. "You've earned something far more valuable." Jason raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Miri's gaze softened, the glow of her eyes dimming to a gentle warmth. "A place here with me, if you choose it." Jason's grin faded into a genuine smile. "I think I already did." As they stepped into the glowing light of her home, the forest hummed softly around them, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond forged in its depths. The galaxy might never understand the connection between a human and the alien witch of Varn, but to Jason and Mirai, it was the beginning of a partnership that would change everything. News of Jason's survival and his bond with Mirai spread quickly. Galactic networks buzzed with speculation, outrage, and awe. Governments, scholars, and religious sects debated the implications of a human forming a connection with a fabled alien witch of Varn, a figure so shrouded in mystery that few dared to even approach her domain. The Galactic Union, a coalition of the most powerful civilizations, summoned Jason and Morelli to appear before their council. Officially, they claimed it was to understand the nature of the connection, but Jason knew it was more than that. Fear of the unknown had driven them to call this meeting, their curiosity mingling with unease. As Jason prepared to leave Varn for the Council's headquarters on the massive space station Orin Prime, he stood with Mirai on the edge of the forest. "You don't have to come," he said, his voice firm but laced with concern. Mirai smiled faintly, her luminous eyes locking onto his. "And leave you to face them alone. You underestimate me, Jason." He grinned. "I should have known better by now." The journey to Orin Prime was tense. As their ship docked at the station, crowds gathered in the observation decks, their eyes fixed on the human and the witch. Miri's presence drew audible gasps, her otherworldly glow and regal demeanour captivating even the most sceptical onlookers. Inside the council chamber, the air was heavy with anticipation. The union's leaders sat in a semicircle, their expressions ranging from wary to openly hostile. Jason and Mirai stood in the centre, their bond palpable even in the face of scrutiny. A Solarian delegate, his crystalline form shimmering with authority, spoke first. "Human, you claim to have formed a bond with the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Why should we believe this is anything other than manipulation? Jason stepped forward, his voice steady. Because I made the choice. Miri didn't force me into anything. She showed me the truth about Van, about herself, and I chose to stand by her. Another delegate, a reptilian Epheth, hissed in suspicion. And what of the witch's past? Her so-called magic has caused destruction across the stars. Mira raised her hand, her tone calm but commanding. My power is a reflection of the worlds I've walked. I never sought destruction, but fear twisted the stories. Jason saw past the myths to the truth. The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Jason seized the moment. You're afraid of her because you don't understand her. But that fear blinds you to what she represents. A bridge between what you know and what you fear to explore. The council murmured, their discussions heated but subdued by the weight of Jason's words. For the first time, they saw Mirai not as a threat, but as a mystery worth unravelling. The council deliberated for hours, the tension in the chamber thick enough to cut with a blade. Jason and Mirai waited in an adjoining room, the silence between them comfortable, yet charged with unspoken anticipation. Finally, the doors opened and the Solarian delegate approached. The council has reached a decision. Your bond is unprecedented, but we cannot deny the significance of what you've shown us. You will be allowed to return to Van, and the Galactic Union will recognize your alliance. Jason felt a wave of relief, but the delegate's tone turned sharp. However, we will be watching closely. Should this bond prove dangerous, our leniency will end. Miri inclined her head, her expression composed. Understood. As they left the council chamber, the crowd outside erupted into cheers and shouts of curiosity. Jason took Miri's hand, guiding her through the throng. Guess we're galactic celebrities now, he said, smirking. Mirai arched an elegant brow. A dubious honour, but one will endure. Back on Van, the forest welcomed them with its familiar hum, the bond between Jason and Miri stronger than ever. They resumed their lives, blending Jason's human ingenuity with Miri's mystical knowledge to create a sanctuary where others could seek understanding rather than fear. Word of their work spread, and soon travellers from across the galaxy began to arrive, not to challenge Miri, but to learn from her. Van transformed into a hub of cultural exchange and mutual discovery, its once feared witch becoming a symbol of unity. One evening, as they stood on the edge of the crystal ridge where they had first met, Jason looked at Miri, his voice filled with quiet conviction. When I came here, they warned me about you, said I'd regret it. And do you? She asked, her tone light but her gaze serious. He smiled, his hand brushing hers. Not for a second. The galaxy might never fully understand the bond between the human explorer and the alien witch of Van. But for Jason and Miri, it didn't matter. Together, they had forged a connection that transcended fear and prejudice, proving that even in the vast expanse of the stars, love and understanding could bridge the greatest divides.